Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room live stream with myself, Dan, Kings, and Race. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us on this Wednesday. I kind of don't even know what day it is. Wednesday evening, where it's just been a bit of a blur the past couple of days. We had Marmardashvili Monday, and now it looks like we might have Chiesa Wednesday. It's mad times, and it's almost as if Richard Hughes saying it would be a busy August turned out to be true. So that's the way that I look at it. But we will jump into Everton because Chiesa has been given the coveted "there we land" rather than Fabrizio Romano's "here we go," which I think is less reliable. But we'll run through him. We'll run through a couple of bits on Tyler Morton looking to stay at Liverpool. And then obviously Stefan Bajcetic is going on a loan to Barcelona possibly, or he's going to RB Salzburg over in Austria with Pep. And also there's some centre-back interest heating up as well, with us contacting Simakan and his representatives from RB Leipzig. So, Greenland, no. Nunes never finished his medical at Arsenal because that was all spoof and that was never a true story. So, there is that. But we'll get into Everton now. And, Dan, I'll throw it over to yourself first on Chiesa. I personally think this is a ridiculously good bit of business. If he even is 70 to 80% of his pre-injury form, we've just gotten an absolute bargain.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think with Federico Chiesa, it's very much that essence of opportunism that Liverpool, we were very good at in the past at times with players going the last year's of their contracts. I mean, Xherdan Shaqiri stands out as being an obvious one in more recent memory. And it's the essence of a low risk signing. Like the value is incredible there, even if he's on a slightly higher wage than most of the players, speculating 160 to 180 grand a week. The fee is so low that it justifies that for a 4-year contract. And even though like Chiesa had the bad injury a couple years ago, his injury record isn't as terrible as people are making it out. It's actually slightly better than Diego Jota's. So we all think of Diego Jota as being a very good player who semi-regularly gets a knock here and there. But Chiesa is at least it does have a better injury record overall than him in terms of how many games he's missed, even though he does get niggling injuries here and there. Yeah, no, I think it's a great signing. I think one of the positions we had going into the summer, obviously we had arguments over defense, midfield, and a forward line, is that people were worried about a backup to Salah. Obviously, we had 5 forwards last year. Doak looks like he's going on loan. Chiesa just solves so many problems so quickly. And he's actually very similar to a lot of players we were linked with this summer. He's very similar to Kubo in the sense that he is a creative player. Kubo is very similar, pacey, creative, very industrialist on the wing, who's playing for a Chiesa was with a why am I forgetting his name? Maximilian, who was the manager of Juventus for forever. I'm forgetting his name. Allegri. There we go. Max Allegri. Yeah, he was playing in a Max Allegri side that is very defensive. You don't get a lot of good offensive players. And Kubo is playing at a very defensive and reactive Real Sociedad. So if you look at the profile, very, very similar in terms of what they offer. And I mean, that's the best front six in the world. Like you, Jota, Diaz, Salah, Gakpo, Nunez, Chiesa. That is like there's no team in world football that has a front line that good, regardless of our other positions, which we do still have very good players. If people would feel uncomfortable with the depth we have, you can't go wrong with 6 forwards. It's also very it's very Ferguson, Sir Alex Ferguson, to buy a forward. He solved a lot of United's problems just by buying a forward. You know, they didn't replace Rory Keane by a forward. You know, midfield. You play a midfield pivot of a Darren Fletcher and Tom Cleverley, buy a forward. You know, you can solve a lot of problems just by buying a forward. Even though people are like, well, what about center back? What about left back or left center back or defensive midfield? You just solve a lot of problems by just buying forwards and just making your attack better. I think it's a great signing. I don't know what they're going to do afterwards. There's been a lot of speculation about midfield and potentially center back. If they do sign Chiesa, I've always maintained they're probably going to sign 1 or 2 players and that's it. If they do get the Chiesa signing done today, because he's having his medical right now, he is in Liverpool. He has landed there. We land indeed. And we're going to get the results of that medical probably sometime today, maybe by the end of the stream, because it was 5 hours ago. I don't know if they get a new player. I don't know if they get a center back. I don't know if they get another midfielder, especially since Morton's staying, Bajcetic is going, and Gomez is staying. Yeah. So this could very much be the end of our business officially, unless something else comes up, like a Joshua Kimmich or another opportunity to sign a player comes in.
Yeah, I can see another signing coming in by the end of the window. Genuinely, I can, because there just seems to be too much noise around so many different things that it's almost as if something will have to happen. That's just the way that I look at it. And it is one of them really interesting ones that, obviously, as you mentioned, Joshua Kimmich is one. Then you have other options that could be there. Like we've heard rumblings of a 6 that might be in the works, but we have no real confirmation on it as of yet. So it is really interesting to see. Kings, with the Chiesa signing, as Dan mentioned, it solves problems across the front three, and also it makes that front three 2 players deep with serious quality, and there doesn't really seem to be much of a drop-off. The only real question mark is about Chiesa's health, realistically, and how his big injury that happened a couple of years ago kind of stifled it, because we were in for him a couple of years ago, and apparently there was £100 million bids and everything being thrown around for him, and now we've gotten him for 10% of that, which in my opinion is absolutely bonkers. What do you think about the signing as a whole itself, and does it excite you? Are you happy with the business, and what way do you look at it?
Well, I got to be honest, I've said many times, following football isn't my top subject, but I remember watching the Euro 2020 when it was 2021 moved, obviously, and I was really impressed with him. Actually, he was one of those that stood out for me, and I really thought then, I thought he's a decent player. And when there was rumours before about him, I was quite excited about it, thinking he's decent and he could really add to our forward line. Of course, with his injury, you do question his long-term ability, but then it does seem he's over that. Mm-hmm. And to get him for this price it's a steal. It's ridiculous. If you can,
we paid more for Emil Heskey, by the way. just for clarification, if anybody didn't know that, we paid more for Emil Heskey.
What was it?
20 mil. 20 mil. Not even that. The sell-on fee from Solanke, Dominic Solanke, going to Tottenham pretty much pays for Chiesa's upfront fee.
Yeah.
Just absolute crazy bonkers. Business.
Oh, Michael Edwards, I love you. Richard Hughes, I love you. Kings, please go ahead on your opinion on him, though.
Well, funny enough, I think what Dan's saying now, we've all got used to the way that FSG work. It's always a case, whether we like it or not, it's just the way it is. They will get money from places. And if you look at everybody that's been sold on, or how we've obtained money, it hasn't really affected our starting 11 to 15 players. It's kind of like, Clark. He's on the edge of, isn't he? He's never really going to make it probably. And then Solanke, brings in money that way. And I just think, okay, they've made some money. They decide they want to spend it now. So they've got 2 signings in 3 days, which is bonkers, because we were all flapping. We had got no signings out of, 300 and odd teams apart from Liverpool. Now we've got 2 in 3
370 something odd teams, or 350 something odd teams, and we were the only one that hasn't gotten a sign. And now we've gotten 2 in the space of 48 hours. It just shows you how quick.
This is why, this is why I'm old and I learned to sit back and just go, right, now the transfer window's shut, that's when I'll complain, because you never quite know. I do think he'll be a really good addition. It does say he can. Is it left-sided, but he's right-footed? Can he play?
He's left-sided, but he's right-footed. But he plays basically all the way across the front three. He can play left wing, right wing, centre. He's played most of his games throughout his Juventus career and throughout his senior career while on the right wing, funnily enough. But he can play versatility. He can play all across the front three. So realistically, I look at it, and I am 100% convinced that that's Charlie Webb's burner. I'm not going to. I'm 100% convinced. So Charlie, you've just outed yourself there now. So less of that now. Behave. Kings, please go ahead and finish your point.
The problem is if he's plays predominantly on the right, he's not going to get in ahead of Salah, is he? So is he going to play understudy, and that drops Elliott down a little bit? Not sure. Plays in the middle. You've got Nunez and possibly Jota. He's got to get past, and then on the left. You've got Gakpo and you've got Diaz. So we have a strong attack, to be fair, I think. So to add him in, that he can either come on as sub or start a game and then change it really gives us different options. And I really hope he can be the player that we've seen in the past, how good he can be. And to me, I'm really quite positive about the sign. I think, especially for the price, it's like I said, it's an absolute steal. So if there's rumours of another coming in as well, that's great. We'll just have to wait and see on that. But yeah, so far I'm quite happy with this. Just need him to actually hold the shirt now, so we know it's a real signing and not one of these. Well, he's going to come and then doesn't quite make it. Yeah.
No, Jamie was just to answer your question. I will not comment on anything that Anfield sector post because they are nothing but wafflers, and there's nothing. I've heard absolutely nothing, and why would we? There's 0 point in it. He's already told us no, he wants to stay. We'd look like idiots if we went back in and we're like, oh, but no, maybe you will this time. Like, no, we'd look like absolute tits if we did that, unfortunately. I don't think that's happening. It's similar to Andre last year, where we went in, we said, look, we want you now. He said, no, I want to stay here, but you can come back in for me in January. We said, all right, bet, went and got Gravenberch and never looked back. That's essentially it. Like, that's the way that I look at it. Race, there's been a couple of questions that have come in through the chat, and this is one that I wanted to throw your way. So Helier mentions here that Chiesa is very versatile. On transfer market, it defines him as a left winger, but where do you see him being played personally? Do you see him as cover across all of the front three, or do you see him as specifically Salah cover on the right wing?
I see him. I see him kind of as a cover on just the wing spots. I don't think through the middle, I think, is a need for us when we have Jota, Nunez, and Gakpo that can play there. I don't think there's a need for having Chiesa play through the middle. I think he's shown just with his pace and his ability on the ball. I think he's more suited to be kind of that, a winger on either side. It kind of depends on, maybe by the game or by the situation we bring him on or anything like that, where we play him. Like if he's coming off the bench, and you just kind of want some quick pace on one side, then you bring him in there. And of course, depth is always needed when players go down and injury placements and whatnot. And so he'll play. I think it's good to have a winger that can kind of play on both sides. I think that's, the more you can, more versatile you can be, the more your value increases and the more that you can get some minutes out there. And so, you have you look at our other options on the wing, like a Harvey Elliott, he's very left-footed. He's very, right winger, central midfielder, but he's very one-sided player. I think Chiesa can be both in that respect.
Yeah.
And so, it's a really good piece of business. Anytime you get a player for this quality and this cheap, like you said, we're interested in him, years ago, and that price tag is dramatically decreased, but there's been some injury concerns, and then just kind of falling off the radar a little bit, so you can kind of swoop back in and get him for a bargain. And you look at the player too, why he was so keen on moving to Liverpool. When he signed for Juventus, they had just come off of winning, I think, 9 straight Serie A titles. So he's going to this club thinking, oh man, it's going to be awesome. I'm going to such a big club. I'm going to win some trophies and whatnot. And, it just hasn't been the same at Juventus. They've been kind of a mess over there. They haven't won the league title since then. He's kind of entering that, he's 26 years old. So he's in that, that sweet spot as a player. And he's like, man, what am I doing wasting my career here? And again, like you said, they don't play that kind of attacking style of football. And so that's, hurts him. So now he's going to come to a team ideally that's not in, such a mess and, more stable club. And so it's a really good opportunity for himself. So it makes sense as to why he was so keen on moving to us. But, there's another parts of this too. It's the one signing that, that's going to play for us this year, right? Martial, he's not going to play for us until next year. But the one player if this is the only player we bring in this window, and it being kind of a backup, attacker, I think optically might not look good, but again, in this deal, it's one of those purchases that, it becomes available, you act on it. It's kind of a, luxury thing, because this is a move that, you make as like a club that's at the top, to kind of supplement your team. And, you do this to, really push on like we did with Shaqiri years back. Like this is, I think that's kind of a very similar comparison here, right? It's a cheap player, comes available, can really be a quality player. Although I think Chiesa was younger than what Shaqiri is when he came into us.
Yeah.
And so, and it's just obviously a different type of player as well. So it's a really exciting, it's an exciting sign. It's a nice piece of business, gives us that another option, late in games, if he's not starting, to come off the bench. He's got a lot of pace, can really cause a lot of problems for the opposition. And so, it's going to be one of those moves that, we might not, see him in a featured role for a bit, because, we're only playing one game a week. And so it's going to be, our starting 11 by and large. And, but it's going to be, it's just good to have a player, I guess, come in an area that the depth is needed. So I won't predict to, if we're going to go in for another player in these next couple of days, but it's good to see that we at least, acted on some piece of business, and it's a move that's, being well perceived. Well taken.
Yeah, it is. Just want to go over a couple of questions that have been fired in while everybody was talking there. Jaden asking, do you think there'll be any more signings that'll take place? Yes, I do. Dan is of the opinion that it won't after Chiesa. He feels like that's us done with the two. I personally feel myself that there will be more, at least one more. That's the way that I look at it. And then just looking at a couple of the other questions that I've saved here. Haley are mentioning a keeper not useful till 25, 26 at the earliest, and another attacker. Meanwhile, it seems we sell everything that's not bolted down. Is that a good transfer window? Considering what we've sold has amassed 600 minutes total time with the senior squad in the past 5 years, and we've netted about £70 million out of it pure profit. Yes, that is an absolutely fantastic window, in my own opinion, because the window's not closed yet. A lot of stuff can happen between now and then. And Haley are mentioning, is Hughes digging himself out of a hole, admitting to a failed transfer window by signing a name instead of covering our real needs? It all depends on what you think your real needs are, because there's no real... If you read Ian Graham's book, which was very interesting, and I still have to read it, but I've seen snippets of it, one of the things that he pointed out is as a team gets better and better, you're now going to find it harder and harder to improve that team compared to the players that you already have. We're now at the point where it's single percentile changes in what players will bring in, because we were 9 points off winning a Premier League last season, and mathematically, technically, we were only out of the Premier League title race at the start of May or thereabouts. And that's with us absolutely riddled with injuries throughout the whole year, and people coming back at inopportune times and having to get up to fifth and sixth gear immediately in the business end of a season just wasn't great timing for us. We could have easily won the league last season. Even if you take the VAR stuff, we had a penalty shout that should have went against Arsenal. We had a penalty shout that should have went against City, and then we had the Spurs game. There's your 9 points there and then. That's us winning the league, because that takes points away from Arsenal and City. So there is that side of things as well. It was such fine margins last season. I don't think people seem to realize that. And it depends really on what needs that you need, because in my own opinion, there's not enough. So the best way to look at this, and the way that the model is based off, which is Moneyball. And if anybody's watched the movie Moneyball, you're not buying players, you're buying wins or buying runs, buying clean sheets, buying points. That's essentially what they're looking at. So they'll look at a player and be like, right, how many wins can this guy bring us? And they'll have rankings on like, right, if he brings us X amount of wins, he needs to cost Y amount of money. If he brings us this amount of wins, he needs to cost this amount of money. And then there's fluctuation between that, and then there's handicaps placed on each league. There's a reason these guys need to have 10 years experience in data analytics and doctorates and masters in physics. Like, we're not just hiring me, Dan, Kings, or Race to be the data analytics guys. It's
harsh there. Harsh there. I'm good at data analysis.
I mean, yeah, but you don't have 10 years in the business and a master's in physics.
True. Not yet. I can do it if I tried. If I put my mind to it, I can do it.
Yeah. If you put to Hjalmar, to answer the question, who's the best six in the market right now? That completely depends on what type of six you want. Do you want somebody that's a ball player? Do you want somebody that's a destroyer? Do you want somebody that's able to play in a pivot? Like, there's so many factors that come into it, and everybody's going to have a different answer. Some of the best sixes that are on the planet right now are the ones that play in a double pivot, and they're not a real traditional six anymore. Your N'Golo Kante's, your Fabinho's, and stuff like that were big, physical, 6 foot tall in Fabinho's point, or played like they were 6 foot tall in Kante's point, destroyers. And as Easy Ollie mentions here, he wants a ball player, not a destroyer, if that makes sense, which is why I think Gravenberch is perfect, because he can do both. because he's a 6'3" monster physically and can do both. But to go back to Ian Graham's point that he was making in his book, by the time you reach where we're at now, Stephen Dan is a super collider in the back garden. That's just the cats running around the house. That's all that is. But by the time you reach where we are now, it's infinitesimally small improvements that are being made. And essentially, we're looking to move from third to first. And that's single percentile changes. And you need to be, and sometimes no move is the best move. We didn't get Chiesa 4 years ago, and now we get him for 10% of the cost now 3 years later. We didn't move for Verge initially and then move for him for a couple of months later. Stuff like that. We didn't get Fekir, and then all of a sudden we went for Alisson. Like stuff, I've been saying it all summer. Trust the nerds. There's a reason they're in the position that they're in, and the way that they look at it. Instead, if it'll change your whole perspective on it if you look at it from a point of view of we're buying wins, not buying players. Because an example of how it works would be, what gets us more wins? Does buying a 6 get us more wins, or does buying centre-back depth get us more wins? In my personal opinion, with the market the way it is, I think getting a centre-back would net you more positive at this very moment than getting a CDM. Purely because the market doesn't really allow for much quality in a CDM for the prices that they're going for. Zubimendi is the model. I don't see anyone else other than him. And that's not saying that the club hasn't done their due diligence. That's also saying that maybe there's not anyone other than him. It could have been that. He could have been just the one. And then they'd have to move on to, right, who influences the game even more? Is it a centre-back? Is it a left-back? Is it a winger? Whatever it may be. That's just my 2 cents on it. But we'll move on before I bore everybody out of it with all this data analytics talk. But we are going to move on to the next topic. But before we do that, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos. We will have a player breakdown of both Mamardashvili and Federico Chiesa in the coming days. I'll be getting that done tonight and hopefully pumped out by Friday this week. So make sure you have your notifications on for that. So stick around for that. Just looking at everything else, then we've Tyler Morton set to say, which then essentially gives us about 8 midfielders, 9 midfielders, including Trey, Nioni, and McConnell.
Yeah, 9 if you include those 2, 7 if you're doing registered squad players, because you technically don't have to register Trey or McConnell. I think you have to register Morton now since he's 21, though. Yeah. Thank you, Jamie, for doing that as well. So it would bring us to 7. If you do the Chiesa siding, that's 6 forwards, and if Morton stays in his register, that's 7 midfielders. That's 8 defenders, and that's 3 goalkeepers, which brings it, I think, to 24. It's 24 total squad.
And I think it was Arteta was saying you needed about 26 or 28 thereabouts to compete, and realistically, you can only register about 25.
And Arsenal don't even have 28 players to register. They don't. They have like 17.
Yeah, their depth is absolutely shocking. But Dan, Tyler Morton staying, is that a positive for you? And realistically, it's what everybody was worried about when they heard, Bajcetic is going on loan, Tyler Morton is going on loan. We're left very tight in the midfield department. But I think myself and yourself were in much the same camp of we've 7 to 8 to maybe 9 players for 3 positions. I think we're going to be okay because it's a good mix of versatility, experience, and youth. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think of all the players that it depends on it. I was always worried that they would loan out Morton and Bajcetic, and Bajcetic looks like the most likely one. And there would be no one. There would be a gap between the 6 senior midfielders and Trey Nioni. Now, granted, Trey can develop. He can come in and be brilliant. You know, we could bring someone on loan. I was more worried with that because I felt that we had pretty much 6 midfielders last year carrying us through most of the season. And I think you saw by the end, especially by April and March, when we start to everyone picked up a few knocks. Like we had those 4 injuries at Brentford away, where we just didn't have the legs anymore. The forwards were out of form. Nothing was really working, and we obviously didn't win the title. But if we had maybe 1 or 2 more, if Bajcetic was fit or Thiago was actually fit during that season, I think we win the league on a canter, and I don't think it's any discussion. But because we had to rely on 6, and obviously neither Thiago or Stefan Bajcetic could contribute that much, I think that it may have left us not short, but we just did not have the quality that could come in. And Klopp obviously didn't use McConnell, who was a youth player, and he didn't use Morton because he was on loan. I think Tyler Morton is a good bridge player if you're therefore if the last signing they're going to look at is either a midfielder or a center back or just a defender in general, not even just a center back. Morton is good because he means you don't have to bring in a midfielder because you'll have 7 midfielders that are fit and are all pretty quality. Like the worst thing you could say about Tyler Morton is that he's just a better version of Wataru Endo, but a less good version of Curtis Jones, if you want to say, or he has a very high floor, but a low ceiling. But Tyler Morton also played in our game against Tottenham when, Harry Kane should have been sent off. And that was during the quad season. And it was a 2-2 draw. And we didn't lose. And that was when he was 18. I think it was 18, 19 at that time. Yeah. So I actually really like keeping Tyler Morton around as an option. I actually felt going into the summer that they would have kept more, mostly because I felt that it just would have been too much work to try to move everyone on and bring players at the same time. Obviously, they've decided otherwise. They said, actually, we need to move these players on like yesterday because we need to clear space out of our academy for new players, but also we need to raise funds for buying replacements for potentially Van Dijk, Trent, and Allison, and Mo Salah. So they're probably looking at the situation 12 months, 18 months down the line saying we need to replace X players. So we need to move these players on that have not played a lot of minutes. Fabio Carvalho, and even Stefan Bajcetic getting a loan to Barcelona, even though he's still at the Ajax. So he's at the AXA arena. So he has not gone to Salzburg for a medical. So if he goes to Barcelona, which I think is actually a very terrible decision because Barcelona are crap and they injure their youth players because they ever play them. And I like Hansi Flick, but I don't think he's going to develop as much as he would with Pep Linders. If he does go, you're essentially you've loaned or sold all the players that have not played significant minutes. Even Bobby Clark, as much as Charlie Webb loves Bobby Clark and thinks he's the reincarnation of Steven Gerrard, Bobby Clark did not come in and play significant minutes. And I got an argument with Richie about this a couple of times saying, well, they came in for the League Cup final, but the reason they came in is because everybody else was injured and they just pulled kids from the academy. No one was screaming Bobby Clark should get minutes at the beginning of that season. And then by January, it just turns out that that's the situation. And we could be there at a League Cup final with Trey Nioni and McConnell having to fill in minutes, but we'll see. I think it's a good move because it allows you to still buy a midfielder if you want to, say a Joshua Kimmich, and register them. But I think if you're keeping Morton, then either you're signaling either we're not going to buy another midfielder, which I don't think they will, but it's potential because of the Kimmich rumors, or you can buy a defender, which seems to be the most reported one with Florian Plettenberg talking about what was his name again? Mohamed Simakan. Because Plettenberg mentioned that Liverpool are interested, but it looks like Newcastle is the one going after him heavily because Newcastle aren't spending $7 million on Mark Gahey, and we're not spending $7 million on Mark Gahey. And I don't care what anybody says. I do not want to see Liverpool spend $70 million on Mark Gahey. He's a good defender. He's not $70 million worth.
I think the wording that was used by Pletty for that was, we've made contact, but the unnamed teams in Saudi are more advanced than anyone else. But we've made contact, whereas Newcastle are exploring. Broke out to Thesaurus for that. So I think we're actually a little bit ahead of Newcastle on that. Now, I could have read that wrong, but that's the way that I looked at it. And
so what he says is that Newcastle now exploring deal to sign Mohamed Simakan until deadline day. Barcelona and Liverpool also inquired about him. There's also concrete interest from Saudi Arabia. Leipzig open for negotiations about the 24-year-old versatile defender, only with suitable offers, contract valid into 2027. So all that really means is that Newcastle are saying we need a defender. Like, what are the options? Liverpool and Barcelona probably already asked his agent with the Leipzig and said, this is what Leipzig will take. And I think Saudi at this point is just remembering that they should probably buy players to remain relevant. So they've probably also come in with a ridiculous offer. But Saudi transfers don't happen very quickly, as we've seen from last year. They have very ridiculous long contract terms that they like to throw in. So it looks like that we're one of a 3, possibly 4 team track, though I would say that Barcelona can't really afford to buy players. They're just such a mess at the moment.
Yeah, they're broke, and I don't care what anybody else says about it. They are broke. It is as simple as that. They are broke. But just, Kings, this is a bit of an interesting one. Wolves play tonight, and João Gomez currently isn't in the squad. And it's also come through from Gig Lobo, which is a fairly reliable source for
Hold on, Stephen. I have breaking news for you. Are you ready?
Go on.
Southampton have bought Aaron Ramsdale.
Oh yeah, 25 million. I've seen that. Yeah,
they just announced it.
Well, double it, and there's your Kelleher fee. That's basically all I'm going to say. I'm not joking. Genuinely, I am not joking. But João Gomez is not in the Wolves squad. Wolves are currently about to buy Andre Trinidad from Fluminense, our linked Andre Trinidad from Fluminense, and for about £25 million. It's something that Neil, who's usually on the Wednesdays as well, has mentioned. Would you be shocked at all of a sudden you get news that Liverpool are in for João Gomez over the next couple of days? Or are you just, at this point, riding the wave until the end of the transfer window and whatever happens, happens?
I think I've learned over the years with all football teams, nothing surprises you with transfers. When, years ago when, Andy Cole went to Man United and all of a sudden Shearer's off to Newcastle, it doesn't matter. Nothing surprised me anymore in football. Fernando Torres at the beginning of January going, I love this club, I want to be here. At the end going, I want to move, and he buggers off to Chelsea. It's like nothing surprised me anymore. It's just a case of I just believe it when I see it. So it wouldn't surprise me that much if Liverpool just go, right, we bought a goalie, we bought a forward player, or we're now buying this player and that player for different positions, and all of a sudden they've done 3 or 4 signings and you're going, 2 weeks ago we hadn't bought anybody, we're all flapping. Now we've added X amount to the squad. So no, it wouldn't really surprise me that much, because he did say, it's going to be a bit more action maybe in August, and we've only got a few days left. So if he's going to do any more deals, then Richard Hughes has got to pull it out of the bag quite quick, really.
He does, to be fair. And I know people are like, oh, well, he's digging it out and they left it too late. But you're never going to please everybody, and there's going to be some people that'll whinge regardless. But I'm just looking here because I seen, I'm not sure if it's Haley or GMU's, but they asked a question about Tyler Morton's contract running out next summer. I cannot see anything that confirms that.
I don't think it does. I think it's 2026.
His last extension was 2023. I don't think they'd have done just a 2-year extension for him, because he would have been 20 at that time. I think they would have done a 4-year extension. I don't see that being the case. I don't know, genuinely. I'm trying to look it up. Long-term contract is the last thing that's done here on the 11th of January 2023. So he only signed this 18 months ago. So I don't see that being the case, that he would be there. 2027. Morton signed 2027. But no, Southampton are buying Ramsdale for 25 million quid, which is hilarious.
But Wolves are buying.
Charlie, fuck off.
Wolves are buying Andre Trindade, so that's the transfer that's happening right now. And so if they're buying Andre Trindade, then I think that João Gomez is going somewhere. I don't know if it's us. It's possible it's City again. It's another City Wolves buy, because they're also trying to get rid of Nunez over there too. I forget his first name now.
Mateus Nunes.
Mateus Nunes. There we go.
But just having a look at some of the questions that came through here. Just trying to see, is there anything? Race, this is one that I'll throw to yourself in relation to the centre-back interest and everything like that. So it's from James Hughes. Will you be happy with João Gomez as a fourth centre-back and get cover elsewhere? I'm assuming that's what James Hughes mentioned. Or are you of the opinion, similar to me, that I'd like another centre-back because Joe likes a knock, Kanate likes a knock. You'd like some extra cover.
Yeah, I agree. I would certainly like another center back to come in, especially given that Gomez, I think, is just better as a, left back, right back, reserve. His kind of I think just do that. But then again, we're kind of. You have Connor Bradley on the right, to back up Trent, and then on the left, if Simakan is still around, I think he's a fine option at left back, and Gomez. So minutes can become hard to come by for Gomez. So I could see, why, a move out for him is kind of, on the cards here. So, if we do, would sell Gomez, I think, bringing another center back would absolutely be vital because, I think you can't go into a new season with just 3 center backs. And now Phillips doesn't have a future here. I don't really, want to see him out there. And Konate's injury prone and, he gets knocks here and there. It's kind of frustrating sometimes when you see his, what he can pick up. And Kwanzaa, for as great as he is, I don't think you want to fully push him into a starting role week in and week out. So I think it's, again, like we talk about the forward line, depth is always is so important, especially in a team that's, competing on multiple fronts, Champions League and, a bigger Champions League this year. And, just the intent, excuse me. Just the games that we play, I'm if we end the window now with Gomez still here as our seemingly 4th choice center back, I would be fine with it, to be okay. But I still would like to see us buy another center back. It's been a pressing need for us, getting the depth, for a couple of years now, and so I would certainly be interested in bringing one in. But Gomez, I think again last year I think he found his role with the team and performed well, but. If he's really wanting to play more, as a true center back and one game in, game out, I don't think this is necessarily the right fit for him personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just absolutely manic with news of late. I'm just seeing so many things come through in both the chat and both the comments here as well. And I'll get a couple of questions and we'll fire them around. So, Kings, I'll throw this one to you from Oliver. So, are we now looking for a backup to Gravenberch as a 6, or do you think we could find somebody that could usurp Gravenberch as a 6? Do you think Ryan is the prince that was promised, so to speak? Or as Dan and myself like to say, Lisan Al-Gaib?
Lisan Al-Gaib!
I mean, I wasn't convinced when they first said he was the number 6 choice, and then they're saying Endo is obviously the backup to that. I'm not saying Endo should be first choice either, to be fair. I mean, he did really well, actually, I think, overall last year when he came in. Everybody was saying, he's only cost 15-16 million pounds. This is ridiculous. It's too cheap. And then now we're talking about Chiesa coming in at only 10 million pounds. It's like, well, it doesn't necessarily mean they're good or bad players just because they cost a lot less than 100 million pounds that Man City spend.
Yeah.
In saying that, we had him in, and I didn't think it worked too well for him maybe further up the field, under Klopp anyway. It just didn't seem to gel quite right. I'm sure that Arne Slot and the team are far more good looking at the actual training ground than what I would be just watching on the TV sometimes and seeing his real qualities if he's good enough. If they think he can mould himself into a top number 6 and they go in, we'll go with what we got. I hate that saying, we'll go with what we got. It's like, it is depressing when you're in for somebody like Zubamendi and then all of a sudden they go, nah, we're not bothering now, he's turned us down, we're going to stay with what we got. And you think, oh, well, why were you looking in the first place then if he's that good? But on the other side of it, give him a chance. Somebody put in the chat earlier, well, the first test against one of the so-called bigger sides, I don't think they are anymore, it's the weekend against Man United. And if he can impose himself in the game there, that'll give him a lot more confidence to maybe grow as the season goes and impose himself. I mean, he's a big lad. He just needs to impose himself on the game more. And I think he could really start to be a good fit maybe in that role. Whether we should bring someone else in as well, I don't know. It just depends how he goes. And are we going to bring somebody in by the end of this week? No. But what they might do is see how it goes with him and Endo there and then look at somebody in January possibly if it's not going well. If it's going well, they'll say, told you so. We were right all along. We didn't need to spend the money. So it's one of them, isn't it? It's like, but I'd like to see him at least have a chance. And then hopefully he does the business for us. And then we can say, well, we already haven't had him there. He didn't cost a fortune this summer in particular. And we can use it maybe in other areas of the pitch when January does come.
Yeah, that's basically the way that I look at it. Jen, welcome back. Long time no see. Thank you so much for the £9.99. You are a star as always. That's going to go into the transfer kitty now to get a number 6 in. So that'll be absolutely brilliant. If we get another signing in, that's all because of your £10, Jen. We really appreciate it. No, genuinely, jokes aside, it all goes back into the channel, and we really, really do appreciate it, Jen. Thank you so much for that. Just before we jump on to a couple of other topics, please do make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure you have your notification bell on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out. We'll be doing a Federico Chiesa player breakdown and a Mamardashvili player breakdown towards the end of this week. I'll be doing those tonight. They should be out by Friday, so hopefully with regards to that, that'll be good. And just confirmed by Fabrizio Romano there, Wolves are closing in on a deal to sign Andrea from Fluminense. Talks are in the final stages, negotiations advancing for a 22 million euro deal plus 3 million in add-ons, and that's madness considering we were willing to pay 40 million for him last summer, which was the reported fee. But Race, I'm going to throw this question over to you with regards to Morton, Tyler Morton, and Easy Ollie here mentioning that the fact that Leverkusen, Leipzig, and Atalanta all wanted Tyler Morton, or were reported to have wanted Tyler Morton, after looking at his data and watching him and all of the analytics in relation to him, would that give you encouragement, or do you maybe think that, I say that's his level, but Leverkusen just basically went bloody undefeated the whole season to the last 2 weeks, and Atalanta bet us in the Europa League, so realistically, it seems as if he's being wanted for a very, very high level of football. So would that entice you more to keep him?
I don't think that really changes my view on Tyler Morton staying. I think he's already I was already going to be, intrigued either way if he stayed or went out on loan. Now that it seemed like he'll be staying and Bajcetic will go out. I'm curious to see how he'll do, with us if he has a role in this team this season, kind of as a reserve number 6 or, in the midfield, just, when needed. Like I said, you're going to need, all the depth you can get, this season. And it's a really good role for a player of his age and where he's at in his career, just to be, not really relied upon much, but if needed, he can step in and do a job. And he's already, like, as Dan mentioned, he played in that Tottenham game, years back. And, so he has some little bit of experience. He was just out on loan last season, had a decent loan spell, getting regular game time. So now he's in a point where he's ready to kind of take that next step as a youngster and just kind of, try and cement himself at the senior level at the, at the club he's been at for a while. And so, I guess it does give a little, encouragement that these other teams, want his services. I think it's kind of validation that this guy can, you keep him around, he can, possibly, be a key player for us this season at some point. And so, I'm just glad to see that, that there'll be some options, and kind of his competition, I would say, would be Endo. Like, if Gravenberch is going to be our number 6, it's Endo's kind of the backup there, and Tyler Morton, I would hope, I guess the hope is that he beats out Endo and kind of, hey, step aside, old man, it's my time. So that, he can kind of fill in those shoes and kind of kickstart his career with Liverpool. And then whatever happens with Bajcetic, that's, it is what it is. But I'd be, because he's been kind of, one of our youth academy players has kind of been, maybe, when these guys go out alone, they're kind of forgotten about a little bit, I think, at least for me. And so it's kind of seeing him back in the picture and now maybe has a role. I'll be intrigued to see what he can do.
Yeah, I'll be very intrigued to see what he could do as well. It's especially consider, like, he impressed very much at Hull, and as we said, like, as the comment said, there's a lot of high end teams interested in him. So it's going to be very exciting to see. And I think what a lot of people haven't really factored in either, and I think this might piss a lot of people off, but the way that they've developed and pumped so much money into that academy, we're going to start seeing less and less transfers come in from overseas. And we're going to start seeing more and more players getting promoted from the academy and sold from the academy to fund those maybe 1 to 2 guys to come in from overseas, but the rest will just be funneled through the academy. And I don't know if that's going to annoy a lot of people, but it may do. But Dan, I wanted to bring something up with you, and that is Richard Hughes's penchant for doing a lot of business on the last day. And I have a particular tweet here that outlines everything that he done on deadline day. So winter 2023, late on the deadline day, Semenyo from Bristol City, Vina from Roma, Hamid Traore from Sassuolo, and Zambarni from Dynamo Kiev. All on the deadline day, done and dusted and brought to Bournemouth. Deadline day, summer 2023. Sinestra, and attempted to sign Daka on loan as well. And then deadline day, winter 2024, Unal from Getafe on loan. He does love a last day bit of drama. You said that you think he's done after the signing of Chiesa? Do you really believe that, or do you think we're in for some last day drama?
So I mean, I think that's what's going to happen just because of what historically has been done and the fact there hasn't been as much news as you would expect for a player to move before the deadline day on Friday. Now, obviously, that can change very quickly. I wasn't even thinking they were going to go for Chiesa. He wasn't even on my radar before I think the news dropped Monday, Tuesday, Monday afternoon, I think is when they Ornstein did it. So, and consider the fact that they're probably going to wrap this up within 2 days, most likely the deal, we'd have to hear something probably by Thursday or by Friday to get the transfer done. And get a medical booked, though granted they can send medical teams over and get it done in another country if they're playing a game or they're too far away to actually arrange the time frame. I just don't know if they'll have enough time to do that, especially with the type of players they're trying to buy. What I will say about Hughes at Bournemouth, because I was also looking into all the transfers he did, he does do a lot of deadline day transfers, but deadline day transfers for Bournemouth is a lot different than deadline day transfers for Liverpool. And a lot of those are in the winter, meaning that there's probably been a much longer process. There's been a lot more talk leading up to it, so you can accelerate it much quicker than now, where it feels very much like Schmadtke did last year, where he's got his black book, he has his agents, he's like, what's the case with this player? Let's get him in tomorrow. How fast can we do this deal? And that's probably happening over the course of 3 to 4 days. The thing about Chiesa, because I know someone did a comment earlier talking about it becoming a panic buy. I don't think Chiesa is that, and I don't think it's the placation. This is a player they've been looking at for 4 years and been talking about for a while now. But the opportunity there to sign him hasn't been there because 100 million. 2 at the time we had the best front three in the world. So you're not spending 100 million on a backup player. So they always looked at other players in the market. Your Minaminos, your Origis, Jota for 40, Diaz for 40, Gakpo for 30. Nunez, obviously being a starter, is 65, rising to 80. So the opportunity there to sign him just opened up. I don't know who right now fits that profile of being able to accelerate faster. Simakan, I think you could with Leipzig because I think Hughes knows the Leipzig. Wouldn't be surprised if he knows who the Leipzig sporting director is at the moment. I don't know who it is because Herbal went to Munich, and they seem open to the decision. And Simakan hasn't agreed to terms with Saudi Arabia yet, and so since they're open to the move, it could definitely happen. Mm-hmm. But it's about that opportunism. Where is that perfect alignment of the Venn diagrams, the Venn diagrams of the stars, where you can accelerate and get somewhere quick. I know people are inserting their favorite player they want, Bruno Guimaraes, insert X player that Liverpool have been linked to the past, Joao Gomez, someone mentioned. I just don't know if they can. I don't know if that's a player, the profile that Liverpool want. 2, I don't know if they really want, if they're going to accelerate a deal that fast. And 3, I don't know if that's really what Slot wants, because I know we've mentioned the defender thing, but all the murmurings have been about a midfielder potentially. That's what the ITK accounts are saying. But again, at this point, I have no idea. They could literally just sign a 5th goalkeeper at this point. I wouldn't be surprised because of how they've been opportunists in the market. They could sell Darwin to Arsenal and buy, David Ray at this point. I have no idea. I know Charlie would be happy with that. Oh, because Arsenal want to have a goalkeeper, and there's no way to defeat a title rival than stripping their goalkeeper from them.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of them. Just having a quick look here.
Shorta. Yeah, thank you, Jay Muse, for a short as well. Yeah, and I think that's more just based on who the links have been linked to and who's the long existing one. It's not like last summer where I expected the Gravenberch deal to go through because it's just always been there, and Plettenberg had written 500 tweets at that point about the deal, so it just felt like that's going to happen by deadline day. This summer, I'm not saying there might not be an accelerated business. I just don't know if they can get anyone over the line at this point. And even though I imagine they're already working on the next deal while Chiesa's medical is currently going through.
Yeah, I just personally can see something else happening by the end of the window. Like we say, like as you mentioned, like something needs to be opportunistic, but like everything is going to be opportunistic by the end of this window because people will want to get deals pushed over the line and they want to push other players out, and you could get opportunistic deals such as that, similar to the Chiesa deal, or you could very well just see, right, there's the release clause. Thank you very much. We'll take that kind of a way too that comes into it.
So just as speculation, what do you think about the possibility of signing Joshua Kimmich? I could actually see it as a potential as being a midfielder if with Bajcetic going. I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, and me and Carter, if we have a stream together, we'll probably have a long discussion argument about it. I could actually see it, but it's just, again, those things doesn't accelerate much quicker.
I can see it myself, but as I said to Willem in the chat, the only sticking point that I have is his salary. He's currently on €320,000 gross a week. £320,000, excuse me. £320,000 gross a week. Where do you come down from there? Like is it going to be similar to a Thiago where you end up just paying low fee, high wages, or is it going to be like what way are we going to go about it? I can see it, and it's very opportunistic and could very easily happen like that, like click of the fingers and it happens. But it's not that I wouldn't be mad at it, but then again, I'd need to see the optics and how it would work and how much he's going to be and how much he's going to be a week. Like this Chiesa deal just matched everything perfectly. He's going to be taking a pay cut of about 33 to 40%, down from 150 grand a week to about 80 grand a week, nearly 50% of a pay cut. He's then also coming for less than what we paid for Endo, and if he's 70% of the player that he was prior to the injury, which I think he can be, especially in slot system where he's not been punched through so many minutes, I think he could be. This could be an absolute masterstroke for us. Similarly to the goalkeeper, I think that's secured the goalkeeping position for the next 15 years. So it'd depend on. It'd really depend on what sort of. I should just depend on the optics of it and the finances of it. Otherwise, I could see it, but I think it depends massively on salary. Like, is this going to be another Thiago situation? Hopefully not from the injuries point of view, because that's just an absolute disaster. But one of the things that I want to talk about for the last couple of minutes of the stream, the last 10 minutes or so, is the announcements of the bans. So Darwin Núñez is one of the players that got bans. He also got a $20,000 fine placed against him. He's had a 5-match international ban and nothing against the club. But in my personal opinion, I think that's the best result we could have gotten out of that. Even if I think that's even better than no ban at all, to be perfectly honest, because now he doesn't go away for the international break and he gets to stick around and train with the team. Kings, were you expecting a ban after everything that happened? Were you expecting any sort of a punishment, or is this kind of we need to look like we're doing something, but we know we fucked up kind of away from Copa America?
I'll be honest, I thought you would have had a harsher financial penalty, and it wouldn't have surprised me if they'd have pushed and said he's got to miss a few club games as well. It's like an overall ban.
Yeah,
that's not what I wanted, but I'm very happy that they haven't done that. And as you say, if he's not going to go away for 5 international games, well, that's quite a long time that he's sitting at Liverpool kind of getting more angry then. So let's take it out on the opposition.
Exactly.
And actually start hitting that ban door. And then, to be honest, by the time he goes back on international, he could be a far more rounded striker where he's took his anger out on the opposition for Liverpool and makes him just more hungry to be on the field then. But yeah, I'm glad that it hasn't affected our club at all. That's a bonus. Was it one of them things that they've got to look like they are doing something? You couldn't just let a player or players go into the crowd steaming in and punching people. It's like without any comeback from it. But at the end of the day, as long as it doesn't affect Liverpool as such as a club, then I think it's positive enough that he's got some punishment, but he can get on with his club career.
Yeah, thankfully. And Jamie was mentioning that lesson learned, does need to control his temper a bit. I mean, in that situation, I'd have acted exactly the same.
Well,
I'm not going to lie to you, Jamie. I'd have acted the exact same. I would have taken 2 chairs with me into that crowd, and I'm not swinging until my family's safe down the bottom. And whatever opinion you have on that, it's your own opinion. But I in my own personal opinion, I'm swinging more than punches at people. So there's that. Dan, just no ban for the club. Was that what you were expecting, or were you expecting the hammer to come down on him for everything that happened?
I would have been surprised if they actually did a club ban. I actually think that, like you said, a ban on the international games is the best for all parties in this case, because it does give him essentially 2 international breaks. Actually, I guess 3, and up until I think Christmas. Like, I think it means he pretty much stays at Liverpool from now to December with no traveling to South America. And I think that is the best case scenario for him. Again, I think it's one of those things where, like you said, the situation, Bank of America Stadium, which I know intimately, I grew up going to that stadium a lot. If you don't have security, it's very easy to get different fans and not have the protection, especially if your family is sitting in the team behind the home team. Essentially, like, you're essentially surrounded by goers. You're not in a booth. If you're not in a booth, if you're not in a box seat, it's very easy to get surrounded by people. And combine alcohol, sports, and let's say a willingness to engage critically with your opponent's team, to put in a very kind.
It's possibly the most politically correct way I've ever heard it put in my life. Your willingness to engage critically with your opponent's team.
Yeah, and their family. I completely understand Nunez's reaction to the situation, especially with his son and wife there. And I actually think he has 2 kids now. Like, he has 2 kids.
Yeah.
And with his wife. So I know, I totally get it, especially being he's younger than me, which is weird to say for me out loud because I feel old now. And if I was in his situation, I probably would have acted very similarly. And that situation is not reflective of Nunez. That's a situation reflecting on a failure of security, a failure of stadium planning, a failure of CONCACAF in general. I think it's CONCACAF or CONMEBOL. I think it's CONMEBOL, the South American League.
Yeah.
That's just a failure of crowd managing a situation, because the player's family should not be put in that situation where other fans can swarm them and attack them and throw things at them. It's one thing for them to call them and shout them names, that's one thing. It's another thing to actually be feel physically in danger, and it literally feel that way because someone is 2 meters away from you and is throwing drinks and cups at you and at your kids. So yeah, I think it's best for all parties at this point. Hopefully, again, he takes his anger out on the pitch in a good way and just smashes more goals for us, because an angry Darwin Nunez that also is an angry Darwin Nunez that's focused, I think, is the best outcome for both Uruguay and for Liverpool.
Yeah, I agree, to be perfectly honest with you. Oh, we're not going to start talking about Miguel Delaney in this chat. I've never seen a man more confidently wrong in my life. He's so far behind, he thinks he's in first place. I had an argument for about 6 hours with him until he decided to block me on X the other night, where he said that Crystal Palace were bracing for a bid from Liverpool and City for Eze. So we said that they're expecting a bid, and he said that's not what I said. And we said, yes, it is. Bracing for a bid is the expectation that a bid will arrive. And he said, no, that's not what I meant. And I'm like, we literally took it word for word, that from your article or your newsletter that you shitily posted out, that you said they're bracing for a bid from, but they're not expecting a bid. So which is it? Is it one or the other? Are they bracing for a bid, or are they expecting it, or are they not bracing for a bid? No, it's not you, JMUs. Miguel Delaney is the stupidest journalist I've ever come across, and it shames me to admit that he's part my nationality. I do not claim him. He's an idiot, and I hope he sees this, because Miguel, you're an idiot. There's 2 brain cells in that man's head fighting for first place. Genuinely, he is fighting for third place. He is genuinely the most infuriatingly, confidently wrong man I've ever come across. Race, I apologize I've gone off on that bit of a tangent. I'll come to you to finish off the stream with the thoughts on Darwin Nunez's ban. Do you think it was justified? Do you think there should have been a ban at all? Or is this very much a situation of Copa America and CONMEBOL basically saying we fucked up, but we kind of have to look like we're doing something.
It is probably part of that. Like you said, it's whatever opinion you have on him, going into the stands and throwing punches and kind of getting in there, with his family possibly in danger.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot. I'm sure you already had a discussion on this, whether it's justified or not. It's hard to say in my position. I'm not a father. I don't have kids or anything like that. So, from an outside perspective, it's easy to say, hey man, just keep a cool head and don't do that. But at the same time, it's, you see why he was so concerned. And so I think there had to be some sort of, ban, like they had to do something, like you couldn't be complete. One of the players in their federation went into the stands and threw punches. Like that's, black and white, that happened. Whether the context behind it obviously matters, but that happened. And so there had to be some sort of punishment. I was never expecting it to extend to the club level again, because, it wasn't like a, like Luis Suarez, bit a piece of skin off of whoever's shoulder it was, in the World Cup, like that, was unjustified and deserved a ban, across, multiple competitions. I could see that. But this happened, with CONMEBOL, being partially at fault here with some of the security measures and failing to take action on that. There was, to extend his punishment to the club level, I think would have been a big overstep on their part. And so, as we said, it's going to be, he's not going to have to worry about international duty for a little bit, which is good. It's those players going to South America, can be, it's a long travel, it's very taxing for them. I don't know if it's World Cup qualifiers they have coming up in this next international window, or once down the road, or do they?
I think it is, because European teams have the Nations League, because I know Ireland are playing England in early September, which I can't wait for, because that's going to be a fun game. But yeah, it's. I don't think there's any games of consequence, to be perfectly honest with you. There's no international tournament for another 2 years, so I think he'll be. I think how many breaks is there between now and Christmas?
I think there's 4. I'm sorry, 3. I think there's one in September, there's one in October, and there's one in November. So there's 3, I think, before the December run-in.
I think he serves that ban by Christmas. So
yeah, so his ban will be done by Christmas. That's, I believe that is, off the top of my head. Don't shoot the messenger. Someone can correct me in the chat, please. But I believe it is 3.
Yeah. So anyway,
I also agree. Ireland should stick to rugby.
I mean, we're one of the best in the world at that too, and it's not just because England get beat by us and that too. But okay, sorry, Race. Continue. There's some xenophobia going on in this chat.
So so he's interested in those few international games, and actually looking at their how they stack up in their current World Cup qualification. I think they're well offset, right? Uruguay's up there. They've had a good qualification. So for their sake, like, okay, we'll miss him. We can withstand his suspension for a little bit. So like I said, there had to be some sort of punishment. I don't think this is too harsh of one. I think it's just I think they can look at things and look at when he'll be suspended exactly and be like, okay, this is kind of it's by no means a slap on the wrist, but it's definitely it's something like, hey, next time maybe we messed up, but also it works both ways. I don't want to get too into this all, but it's both ways. You can see it.
Yeah, it is, and it's a difficult situation, but realistically, anybody that's in that situation would do the same thing. And if you didn't, I guess that's just a different opinion on it. Just seen a tweet come in here. Just going to read it out. Apparently, the same plane that brought Federico Chiesa to Liverpool today is going to be traveling to Salzburg tomorrow. Interesting that, which would lead me to believe that that's Stefan Bajcetic's trip sorted, and he's probably going to Salzburg, and that might just be that done and dusted. I don't think Barcelona are going to come back in with any sort of
Tyler Morton.
Yeah. It could be both of them, but we leave it. Right, guys, we are going to leave it there. Just gone a little bit over time. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. It's been absolutely fantastic. We obviously had Federico Chiesa joining Liverpool, who's currently undergoing his medical, and we should receive announcements soon on that, and it should be a club announcement soon. I'd imagine it will come tomorrow at some point. If you haven't already done so, please make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure your notifications are on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out. If you're currently watching on X, we've over 7,200 people here currently watching, both through YouTube and through X. If you're currently watching on X, jump over to our YouTube channel. The link is in our bio, and you can check out all of the content there. We'll have a Federico Chiesa player breakdown coming this week, and we'll also have a Georgia Mamardashvili. I'll get used to saying that name. Mamardashvili breakdown coming as well. So we can't wait for that. Jen, as always, an absolute star in the chat with your £9.99. We really appreciate it. Make sure, guys, smash the like button before we go. Hope everybody has a wonderful evening, and we'll see you guys tomorrow again. Bye-bye.